Let's start at quarterback. Okay, they went with three quarterbacks: Brock Purdy, Sam Darnold, Brandon Allen. No surprises there.
No.
Um, it's funny because Kyle didn't even guarantee he was going to have a third quarterback on the roster when he was talking the other day, but obviously they opted to put Brandon Allen on the roster.
Yeah.
There were some good young quarterbacks like Max Duggan. Malik Cunningham was cut by the Patriots. Bailey Zappi got cut by the Patriots. There were some interesting quarterbacks, that are out there. Do you think they will try to put a young quarterback, a fourth quarterback on the practice squad?
Yeah, maybe on the practice squad so they can learn and develop that maybe. But I would be very weary of Kyle Shanahan taking another quarterback right now because we know it takes the quarterbacks a long time to figure out the offense and this and that. So if they are, they're going to do it now and put them on the practice squad to take some time and develop. But I don't see it happening. Again, I think Kyle's happy with his three quarterbacks. They started all training camp. They were through the whole preseason. Kyle's really specific with his quarterbacks. So I don't think they're going to sign anybody. But I'd be intrigued if they did because there are some good young quarterbacks. Duggan, like you said, Zappy, Will Greer's out there. There's some decent names out there.
Yeah, I like Malik Cunningham. I think he
Yeah.
can run around. He's athletic as heck. I thought he looked good with the Patriots. I
Yeah.
liked him at Louisville. I mean, to me, he would be nice. All right, so there's their three quarterbacks. Then let's move to running back. No surprises here. CMC, J.P. Mason, Ty Davis Price, Elijah Mitchell, and Juice. So they got the four running backs and the one fullback. Pretty
Yeah.
much as we expected, right? I mean, nothing, no surprises there.
Yeah, there's no surprise. This is pretty much the way I saw it. Nothing crazy. The one guy I will say that we didn't mention here, Jack Coletto. I think he'll make the practice squad. I think that is the future Kyle Juszczyk. He just needs to develop his blocking, and in 2 years you'll see him on the main roster.
Yeah, I think maybe even one.
Maybe.
Coletto just needs to, spend some time in an NFL weight room, get a little stronger,
Yeah.
get a little bigger. But yeah, super smart. It'll be interesting to see if anybody picks him off. I doubt they will, and I think Coletto will find his way to the practice squad.
I
So
hope so.
okay, so that's the running back room. That's the quarterback room.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's move to tight end.
Mm.
Tight end, they obviously have George Kittle. They had Cam Latu, but they put him on IR. They put him on IR before the cut down, so he's done for the year, right?
Yeah. Red shirt.
So
Yep, he's in a
yeah,
red
they're
shirt.
redshirting Latu. And then I wanted to go with three tight ends and use that extra spot on a defensive player. They went with four: Kittle, Warner, Dwelly, and Braden Willis. I don't think they need four, especially since they have Juszczyk, who can, play tight end in a pinch. They have Juwan Jennings. He could be in the two tight end role as a flexed out, tight end off the line of scrimmage if they wanted to. I don't know. I would have picked between Warner and Dwelly, and I probably would have picked Warner. But Dwelly's fine. Because he's more of a receiver. But I think Braden Willis is better than Dwelly or Warner. I think Braden Willis is going to be tight end too. I wish they had gone three tight ends instead. They went four, and they always seem to go four with under Kyle.
Yeah, Kyle loves the extra tight end. He liked the dual tight end sets. I think they went with Braden mainly. I thought Braden might have been on the roster bubble because he didn't do much in preseason, although he had a really good training camp. But I feel like Kyle looked at it and said, "Man, I drafted two tight ends. I can't have both of them not make this roster." So I think part of it was that, and they want to develop Braden Willis because I think he has some skills, and they want to develop him. And the thing with Charlie Warner is, he was going to make it because of his blocking skills. You got to give Kittle some time off and let him have some takes in between blocks. So Warner was going to make it for the blocking. Braden Willis has got the hands, but Kittle does get hurt here and there. You got to keep an extra guy just in case, and I think that's where Ross Dwelly came in because whenever Kittle goes down, they usually put Ross Dwelly at that tight end spot. So I think Dwelly made it just because of roster politics and the potential of injury. Because George Kittle's boy is Ross Dwelly. He wears Ross Dwelly T-shirts to the game sometimes. So
Does he?
yeah, he
Well, I'll
does.
say this
There's some
about
politics.
Dwelly. Dwelly has lifted a lot of weights in the offseason. He's definitely bigger in the upper body.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll give you a better effort when he is asked to block. but I would have gone with 3 and used that roster spot somewhere else. All
Yeah,
right, let's go to the wide receiver. Ayuk, Debo, Jennings, 1, 2, 3. Ronnie Bell clearly made this team, so that's 4. So they had 4. I thought they were going to go with 5 wide receivers. They went with 6 because they kept Ray and Danny Gray on the active roster. But won't they move those guys to IR now and shelve them?
yeah.
What is that? I think they're going to shelve both those guys, aren't they?
I think so, and I think the reason, and I was talking to Cam Inman last night. We were talking about this last night on my live. So if Ray and Danny
He's been
Gray,
saying that Tay Martin was going to get the spot.
I thought Tay was going to get it too, but I feel like this is what they're doing is okay. They had to put Ray and Danny Gray on the roster now to put them on short-term IR because if they do revert to injured reserve, now since they made the final roster, they can put them on a short term and it'll be a 4-week thing instead of an 8-week or whatnot. So I think that's what they had to do. So tomorrow we'll probably see them go to IR, maybe. And then after that, they can pick up any of the other receivers that didn't make it. Tay Martin, Chris Conley, Isaiah Winstead, whoever they feel was good enough to fill those last 2 roster spots. Or when we get to it, they have 2 guys that they didn't take on the defensive lineman. Maybe they can call those guys up. So I think it was more of a procedural type thing, keeping Ray and Danny right now. But overall, I mean, the first 3 receivers didn't surprise me. But, Ronnie Bell, congrats to Ronnie Bell, man. 7th round pick. He earned that spot for sure.
Well, okay, here's the question. I think they're going to put them both on, as you said, the temporary IR.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they're only going to put 2 receivers on there, but they're only going to replace them with 1 receiver.
Ooh, okay.
And the question is this: is it Chris Conley, Tay Martin, Willie Snead, or is it from somebody from another team that got cut? The one thing that Kyle was perfectly clear about is he wants this last receiver to be somebody who's got big time speed. And when I asked him about it, I said, "How important is it, to have one guy who can run off the defense?" He said, "It's vitally important. Other teams know what you have and what you don't have." So Conley would be the fastest guy they have.
Okay.
If Conley's healthy, I could see them going with him. But there were some interesting guys who were cut around the league. Demetric Felton, the former UCLA running back, wide receiver, got cut by Cleveland. He runs well. Austin Watkins, who's a former Niner, he runs really well. He was cut. Jacob Harris was cut by Jacksonville. Simi Fehoko, the Stanford kid, was cut by Dallas. Trent Taylor, the Niners' old kick returner, was cut by Cincinnati. Dez Fitzpatrick was cut by Pittsburgh. I like Dez quite a bit. Shea Smith was cut by Carolina. I'm just looking at wide receivers. Bo Melton was cut by Green Bay. Anybody? Joseph Nada, who's Ayuk's buddy, who went to Clemson, got cut by Philly. He's kind of an interesting developmental type wide receiver. Who else? Amari Rogers got cut by the Colts. James Washington, Michael Strachan, both cut by the Colts. So there you go. I think, let me see. I got a couple more here. Shaq Davis cut by the Saints. The guy that I would have a lot of interest in, I probably would go try to sign Chris Conley, right?
Yeah.
But the guy that I would have a ton of interest in is Matt Landers, who got cut by Seattle, who played at Arkansas. He's a big 6'5" receiver who runs 4.3. I might go after Matt Landers just because I think he has more upside potential than Chris Conley. Conley's a veteran.
9 years.
Landers is a rookie. Landers is a rookie at Arkansas. Yeah. But those would be the 2 guys I'd be looking at, Matt Landers or re-signing Chris Conley. I could see Willie Snead and Tay Martin potentially going back to the practice squad, but I just don't think they're going to add those guys because those guys don't complement what they have. I mean, Jennings is a possession guy. Debo is not a deep speed guy. Ayuk is probably their fastest guy outside of Gray and McLeod, but he's not a deep ball guy. I think they need somebody who runs fast. So I'm going to say Matt Landers out of Seattle's camp from Arkansas or a re-signing of Chris Conley.
I
but
think
I also
Conley,
think it will only be one.
I think Conley. That the more you say that they might put two guys on, but they might only replace him with one. That's smart. I like Conley, but he did get his shoulder banged up, so you got to take that into consideration. I
Right.
think the rest of those guys will definitely be practice squad. Like Tay Martin, I like him on practice squad. Isaiah Winstead, Willie Snead. Those guys could be called up later in the season if there's someone that's banged up. One guy you mentioned that I could see them maybe bringing to the Niners, who was on the Niners before, Trent Taylor, because they kind of need a return man.
Yeah. What do you think of him?
I mean, he didn't really work out because of the injuries initially, but him and again, politics, if we want to talk about roster politics, he's only a George Kittle call away from making this roster there. Quality time. I'm telling you, Trent Taylor, if he calls up George and says, "Hey George, can you call up Kyle today? Get him back on this roster." I could see it happening. And he can
He's a
play return man.
reliable return man.
Yeah.
You know that. But
Yeah.
I kind of like Ronnie Bell. They
Yeah, I
did
love
cut
him.
Jameson, so maybe they want a return guy.
Maybe. Yeah, I was surprised with the Jameson cut.
Yeah, I was too. But I mean, to me, you need a vertical threat. So
Yeah.
to me, it's Landers or Conley.
I agree.
Okay, let's move to the offensive line.
Oh.
The starting five: Trent Williams, Aaron Banks, Jake Brendel, Spencer Burford, Colton McKivitz. I like the starting five. I know there's a lot of people that don't. I really thought they would go with like 7 or 8 offensive linemen. I thought they would go with Feliciano and Ilm Manning and then trade for a tackle. But at least for the moment, they went Feliciano, Nick Zakel, Jalen Moore, and Matt Pryor. Instead of going with 7, they went with 9.
Yeah.
That to me seems like a lot of guys right there.
Yeah, but I think they want depth because you never know what's going to happen injury wise. Trent Williams, you got to hope and pray he stays healthy. And Colton McKivitz, I think he's still an X factor. He's still a wild card. Like, you don't know 100% if Colton McKivitz is going to be the guy because right now he's the starter. He's penciled in as a starter. There's a lot of pressure on Colton. If he fails, I don't think they'd hesitate to pull him for Matt Pryor or Jalen Moore. Although I figured Jalen was going to make the roster when last week, when they on that final preseason game, Jalen was sticking in for Trent Williams, who didn't play.
And he played well. Either Jalen Moore and
Yeah.
Pryor both had their best preseason game against the Chargers.
They did. So they probably won that spot on that game. I wasn't a big fan of Jalen Moore, but hey, he played good, and we need the depth because you never know what's going to happen. I will say I was surprised Nick Zakel, but I mean,
he had a bad first preseason game against the Raiders,
he did.
but I think he improved after that.
Yeah,
So they like his makeup.
They like his makeup. I was talking to Cam, and he says the reason why they think he kept him is because he's a good listener and he's willing to be coachable. Like he's one of those guys that he'll learn and listen and try to become better. So, and
there's a lot to like there too. He's 6'6", he's 318 pounds. He's tough. He's smart. He's best buddies with Purdy.
That's it. Yep.
He's Purdy's roommate.
Yeah.
Don't think that didn't factor in. But that's still one. That's one too many linemen in my book. They should have picked between Matt Pryor and Jalen Moore and put the other one on practice squad. But obviously, they didn't feel like those guys would make it through to the practice squad. Ilm Manning. I hope they don't lose Ilm Manning because I mean he is a really good prospect down the road, and I could see somebody plucking him. Okay, so that's the offense. And you look at that and you go, okay, well, 3 quarterbacks, 5 running backs, 6 wide receivers currently, which is probably 1 too many, 4 tight ends, which I think is 1 too many, 9 offensive linemen, I think that's 1 too many.